Hello and welcome to Reading Light, where I simplify books for the modern reader, making them easy to understand, especially if you're an English learner. You're listening to a complete audiobook of Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen, a classic tale. This version has been rewritten in modern English, maintaining the original structure of the book, so it still feels true to its time. For those of you who are English learners, this book has been modified to a C1 English level. Before we start, be sure to check out the special section at the end of the video, where we'll explore new vocabulary with examples to enhance your understanding. Now, without further ado, let's dive into the book. Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. Chapter 3, read to you by Reading Light. No matter how much Mrs. Bennet, with help from her 5 daughters, asked about Mr. Bingley, they couldn't get a satisfying description of him from Mr. Bennet. They tried all sorts of tactics, direct questions, guesses and hints, but he managed to avoid answering any of them. In the end, they had to rely on their neighbour, Lady Lucas, who gave a glowing report. Sir William was delighted with Mr. Bingley. He was young, very handsome, extremely pleasant, and best of all, he intended to be at the next assembly with a large party. Nothing could be more exciting. A love for dancing was often the first step toward falling in love, so the family held high hopes for Mr. Bingley's heart. "If I can see one of my daughters happily settled at Netherfield," said Mrs. Bennet to her husband, "and the others equally well married, I will have nothing left to wish for." Within a few days, Mr. Bingley returned Mr. Bennet's visit and stayed for about 10 minutes in his library. He had hoped to catch a glimpse of the young ladies, whose beauty he had heard so much about, but he only saw their father. The Bennet ladies, however, were luckier. They managed to see him from an upstairs window and noted that he wore a blue coat and rode a black horse. An invitation to dinner soon followed, and Mrs. Bennet had already planned the dishes to impress him when a reply arrived. Mr. Bingley had to go to town the next day, so he couldn't accept their invitation. Mrs. Bennet was disappointed. She couldn't imagine what business would take him to town so soon after arriving in Hertfordshire, and she worried that he would constantly be travelling, never settling at Netherfield. Lady Lucas reassured her by suggesting he was likely just getting a large party together for the ball, and soon a rumour spread that Mr. Bingley would be bringing 12 ladies and 7 gentlemen to the assembly. The Bennet girls were dismayed by the number of ladies, but were later relieved to hear that, instead of 12, he was bringing only 6 women from London, his 5 sisters and a cousin. And when they finally arrived at the assembly, the party consisted of just 5 people: Mr. Bingley, his 2 sisters, the husband of the eldest, and another young man. Mr. Bingley was attractive and had pleasant, easy manners. His sisters were fashionable and elegant. His brother-in-law, Mr. Hurst, seemed to be a gentleman by appearance. However, it was Mr. Bingley's friend, Mr. Darcy, who quickly drew everyone's attention with his tall figure, handsome face, and noble demeanour. Within 5 minutes of entering the room, it was rumoured that he had £10,000 a year. The men praised his looks, the women declared him even more handsome than Mr. Bingley, and he was admired by all until his manners changed everything. Mr. Darcy appeared proud, aloof, and hard to please, and even his great wealth couldn't save him from being seen as unpleasant and disagreeable, unworthy of comparison to his friend. Mr. Bingley soon acquainted himself with all the important people in the room. He was lively, friendly, danced every dance, and regretted that the ball ended so early. He even talked of hosting one himself at Netherfield. Everyone saw his good nature for themselves. What a contrast he was to his friend. Mr. Darcy danced only twice, with Mrs. Hurst and Miss Bingley, refused to be introduced to anyone else, and spent the rest of the evening walking around the room, speaking occasionally to someone from his own party. His character was quickly decided. He was the proudest, most disagreeable man in the world, and no one wanted him to come back. Mrs. Bennet was among his strongest critics, especially because he had offended one of her daughters. Elizabeth Bennet had to sit out 2 dances because there weren't enough gentlemen, and during that time Mr. Darcy was standing close enough for her to overhear a conversation between him and Mr. Bingley. Mr. Bingley, who had stepped away from the dance, tried to convince Mr. Darcy to join. "Come, Darcy," he said, "I must have you dance. I hate to see you standing alone like this. You would be much better off dancing." "I certainly will not. You know how much I dislike it unless I know my partner well. At a gathering like this, it would be unbearable. Your sisters are already dancing, and there isn't another woman here whom it wouldn't be a punishment to stand up with." "I wouldn't be so picky as you for a kingdom," Mr. Bingley exclaimed. "I've never met so many pleasant girls in my life as I have this evening, and quite a few of them are remarkably pretty." "You are dancing with the only attractive girl in the room," said Mr. Darcy, looking at the eldest Miss Bennet. "Oh, she's the most beautiful creature I've ever seen, but one of her sisters is sitting right behind you. She's quite pretty and very pleasant. Let me introduce you to her." "Who do you mean?" Mr. Darcy turned to look at Elizabeth for a moment, but catching her eye, he quickly looked away and coldly said, "She is tolerable, but not handsome enough to tempt me. I am not in the mood to pay attention to young ladies who are ignored by other men. You should return to your partner and enjoy her smiles. You are wasting your time with me." Mr. Bingley took his advice, and Mr. Darcy walked away. Elizabeth, meanwhile, was left with no warm feelings towards him. However, she recounted the story to her friends with great humour. She had a lively and playful nature that found amusement in anything ridiculous. The evening ended well for the Bennet family. Mrs. Bennet was thrilled to see her eldest daughter admired by the Netherfield party. Mr. Bingley had danced with her twice, and his sisters had taken special notice of her. Jane was pleased as well, although more quietly than her mother. Elizabeth shared in her sister's happiness. Mary had heard Miss Bingley call her the most accomplished girl in the area, and Lydia and Catherine were happy to have had dance partners all night, which was all they cared about at a ball. The family returned home in high spirits to Longbourn, their village. Mr. Bennet, who was still awake with a book, was curious to hear about the evening's events. Although he had hoped his wife's high expectations about the stranger would be dashed, he quickly learned the evening had gone differently. "Oh, my dear Mr. Bennet," Mrs. Bennet exclaimed as she entered the room. "We had such a wonderful evening, such a fantastic ball. I wish you'd been there. Jane was admired by everyone. Mr. Bingley thought she was beautiful and danced with her twice. Can you imagine that, my dear? He actually danced with her twice. She was the only one he asked a second time. First, he danced with Miss Lucas, which annoyed me terribly, but no one can admire her, you know. And then he noticed Jane and asked to be introduced, and danced with her for 2 sets. Then he danced 2 with Miss King, and then with Maria Lucas, and then 2 more with Jane, and then 2 with Lizzie. If he had any mercy for me, Mr. Bennet said impatiently, he would not have danced half as much. For heaven's sake, no more about his partners. I wish he'd sprained his ankle in the first dance. Oh, my dear, I am quite delighted with him. He is so very handsome, and his sisters are such elegant women. I have never seen anything so fine as their dresses. I dare say the lace on Mrs. Hurst's gown—" Mr. Bennet interrupted, refusing to hear any details about their clothing. Mrs. Bennet had to change the subject, and with some bitterness began to talk about Mr. Darcy's rudeness. "But I assure you," she added, "Lizzie doesn't miss out by not pleasing his taste, for he is a most disagreeable, horrid man, absolutely not worth trying to impress. So arrogant, so full of himself. There was no tolerating him. He walked around like he was too good for everyone, not handsome enough to dance with. I wish you'd been there, my dear, to put him in his place. I utterly detest the man." This concludes Chapter 3 in our playlist. Feel free to move on to Chapter 4 whenever you're ready. If you're here to learn, let's explore the vocabulary and examples from Chapter 3 together. Let's get started. Picky for a kingdom means being extremely selective or hard to please, even when it seems unreasonable. For example, he's picky for a kingdom, refusing to settle for anything that doesn't meet his high standards. Means he's very hard to please, even when it shouldn't matter. In the book, I wouldn't be so picky as you for a kingdom. Mr. Bingley is saying he wouldn't be as difficult to please as Mr. Darcy, even if he were given a kingdom. He thinks Mr. Darcy is being too selective about the women at the ball. Dismayed by means feeling shocked, upset, or disappointed by something unexpected. For example, she was dismayed by the sudden change in plans means she was upset because the plans changed. In the book, the Bennet girls were dismayed by the number of ladies. The Bennet sisters were disappointed and upset when they heard that Mr. Bingley might be bringing many women to the ball, which made them worry about their chances. Glimpse of means catching a brief look at someone or something. For example, she caught a glimpse of him before he left the room means she saw him for a short moment before he went away. In the book, he had hoped to catch a glimpse of the young ladies whose beauty he had heard so much about. Mr. Bingley wanted to briefly see the Bennet sisters as he had heard about their beauty. Assembly is a formal gathering or meeting, often for social purposes like a dance or ball. For example, the town held an assembly every month for its residents. The town organized a formal social gathering for the community every month. In the book, he intended to be at the next assembly with a large party. Means to say, Mr. Bingley planned to attend the next formal social gathering with a large group of people. Glowing report means giving someone or something high praise or a very positive description. For example, she gave a glowing report of the restaurant, saying it was the best she'd ever been to. Means she gave a very positive review of the restaurant. In the chapter, Lady Lucas, who gave a glowing report. Lady Lucas praised Mr. Bingley highly, describing him in a very positive light. Noble demeanour is dignified, refined or aristocratic manner or appearance. For example, his noble demeanour made him stand out in the assembly. Means his dignified and aristocratic behaviour caught everyone's attention. In this chapter, Mr. Darcy, with his tall figure, handsome face and noble demeanour. Mr. Darcy's manner and appearance gave him an air of dignity and refinement.
And that brings us to the end of today's chapter. Thank you for listening, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.